Who has had a good week, Dominic?
It's been a good week for lesbian parents in Italy after Italy's constitutional court ruled that in cases when female same-sex couples have used IVF abroad to have a child, the state must recognise both parents as legal parents. So also the woman who is not the biological mother.
Oh, for once, this sounds like it's actually a solid, straightforward good week.
Yeah.
Something we never have.
You're welcome.
But you said it only applies to couples who've used IVF abroad. Why just those couples?
Well, that is because in Italy, you can only do IVF if you are a woman married to a man. Controversially, actually, single women also can't access IVF in Italy. And actually, the Constitutional Court also ruled on that issue last week, saying that until there is legislation from Parliament to give single women access, it is not unconstitutional to withhold IVF access to single women.
Oh, that's a bummer.
But yeah, the fact that lesbian couples can't access IVF in Italy isn't actually even that unusual in Europe. In most EU countries, you can at least access IVF if you have that money to spend at a private clinic as a lesbian couple, even if the public healthcare system doesn't cover it. In Italy, however, not only can you not access IVF at all as a lesbian couple, if you do go abroad and do it, up until recently, the non-biological mother would not be recognised by the state as a parent, which is no small thing. That could cause serious problems, like, for example, with hospital visits if your child gets sick. It creates problems with inheritance if the parent dies. And if the biological parent dies, there are also potentially really terrible consequences for the surviving family members. The only solution up until now in Italy was for the non-biological parent to adopt their child after birth, which is arguably a rather cruel thing to make a parent do in order to have any legal connection to their child. Also a process that just takes up a lot of time and doesn't just happen immediately.
Yeah, it sounds like some quite unnecessary and also stressful bureaucracy for new parents who are already juggling with this new life coming into their own lives. I'm interested to hear, though, what was the Italian Constitutional Court's reasoning for ruling in favour of the lesbian mothers? Like, what is the legal argument here?
The Constitutional Court said that by denying full dual parenthood, the state was denying the child's right to maintain a balanced and continuous relationship with each of their parents, to receive care, education, instruction, and moral assistance from both, and to maintain significant relationships with the ascendants and relatives of each parental branch. Yes, that was my Google translation of some Italian legal text.
It's very pithy. I like it.
Yes, thank you. The court also said that the state was in violation of the constitutional principles of equality and personal identity. So it's a pretty big win for lesbian mothers in Italy.
We talked about this issue, or generally the problems facing lesbian mums in Italy, quite a while ago, I think, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think at the time, do I remember correctly, mayors had been registering the non-biological mother on birth certificates in some places, but then Giorgia Meloni's government forced them to stop doing that.
Yeah, well remembered, Katy. I think we discussed it back in 2023, and back then the mayor of Milan, a guy called Giuseppe Sala, was forced to comply with instructions from hardline conservative Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni that all councils stop registering both parents on a birth certificate. Meloni's government's instructions were actually based on their interpretation of a law that dates back to 2004. So, it's important to note that she and her fellow members of the Brothers of Italy-led government didn't actually pass anything through the Italian parliament to make this change. Things actually got worse since we last talked about it in 2023. In other parts of Italy, including Padua and Lucca, public prosecutors' offices actually started retroactively removing the name of the non-biological parent from the birth certificates of children with two mothers.
Horrible.
So this ruling from the Constitutional Court will bring a huge sigh of relief to rainbow families across Italy, but especially to the children and parents in families like this in Lucca and Padua. This case in the Constitutional Court was actually brought to the court by an LGBTI advocacy group called Rete Lenford, who were actually representing a lesbian couple in Lucca who were one of those couples that were suffering from Meloni's government's decree. And it is now confirmed that the state was behaving in an unconstitutional manner. So yeah, it's being seen as a big step forward for lesbian rights in Italy, a sign that Meloni's hard-line government, who have relentlessly targeted the rights of LGBTQ plus people since coming to power, cannot get away with everything that is supposedly supporting their beloved so-called traditional family values.
Does this ruling mean anything for gay dads in Italy? Because, I mean, even if there is no provision for them in Italy, like there must be gay fathers in Italy who have found ways to have children abroad and then move home with them.
Yeah, it's really not a good week for gay fathers in Italy yet. Things in general are legally much more concerning for anyone living in Italy who has gone abroad for surrogacy. Meloni's government actually passed one of the most restrictive laws against surrogacy in the West late last year. The law introduced jail terms of up to 2 years and fines of up to 1 million euros for people who go abroad to have a baby with a surrogate mother. It's obviously not only gay men who go down the surrogacy route, but the law was seen as an attempt to target gay men and further limit their possibilities when it comes to parenting. That said, there was a glimmer of hope for gay fathers in Italy last week, which I also wanted to share. There was a ruling in Pesaro on the same day, actually, as this constitutional court ruling. And in this ruling, 2 fathers were allowed by the court in Pesaro to adopt their child who had been made with the help of a surrogate in the US. Mm-hmm. The child was actually born before Meloni's restrictive anti-surrogacy law came in last year. So that is a big win for that family, but things are still prohibitively restrictive for gay men who want to have kids in Italy. And yeah, I saw lots of stories in the media whilst researching this good week of rainbow families deciding to leave Italy since Meloni came into power because her government is just attacking these rainbow families pretty relentlessly.
Oh, that's so grim. And even for that family that won, the right to adopt, as we said, it's like a whole load of bureaucracy, and it shouldn't be that you have to call them an adopted kid, even if it's just on paper.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that always winds me up about these anti-rainbow family laws is that the legislation diminishing the rights of these queer parents is so clearly not in the interests of the child. Yeah. And I was really pleased to see that the Constitutional Court, at least in part, was ruling with the rights of the child at the centre of its ruling. And yeah, I'm a bit focused on children's rights at the moment because I'm actually currently playing a very bad father in a piece of opera about children's rights.
I was going to say, this is quite related to what you're doing in your other job at the moment.
Exactly, yeah. For people that don't know, I'm also an opera singer, and we're actually playing in Amsterdam next week. So if you speak Dutch and want to see a cabaret opera about children's rights, then come to Oude Pardon.
Plug.
But I actually wanted to ask you, Katy, did you know that there are 54 rights that a child is entitled to according to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child?
I did not know that. Are you going to tell me all 54 of them?
No, I'm not. But I thought it was important to mention it and to say that this convention, it was adopted in 1989. And it includes things like the right to a name, to a nationality, the right to play, the right to receive care, the right to be safe from violence, and the right to education. It really covers a lot, and 196 countries have signed on to these rights, including all of the European Union countries. And this UN Convention on the Rights of the Child is actually referred to in the sentence from the Constitutional Court, along with some other European treaties protecting children's rights, even though the ruling is mainly based on the Italian national constitutional principles. And little sidebar, but actually in this convention, governments have a right to make their citizens aware of these rights of the child, which I think most governments, at least in Europe, are failing at. So everyone go out there and buy your copy of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. It's riveting reading.
Is it available at all good bookshops?
Yes, I think it is. Anyway, I should probably say that, it's still not great to be living in Italy as a rainbow family right now, but it's a little bit less awful than it was last week, thanks to this ruling. And therefore, good week goes to lesbian mothers in Italy.
You know what? In this day and age, any glimmer of hope is something I'm very happy to cling on to.
Me too.